Hello, welcome to the channel Setting the Stage. Today's video is called The Illuminati and Current Events. If you like this sort of content, please subscribe. And the video is called The Illuminati and Current Events, but I'd actually like to start with the last campaign. And in the last campaign, Donald Trump ran against Hillary Clinton, and Hillary Clinton was portrayed as the Illuminati establishment person advancing the New World Order, and Trump was portrayed as the anti-establishment person, the nationalist against the globalist. And we saw a lot of crazy stories in the alternative media about Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. Again, usually portraying Hillary as the bad guy and Trump as the good guy. And the best example of this is Pizzagate. And if you haven't heard of Pizzagate, I'm not going to go into great detail about it in this video. Mostly because it can actually get a channel banned. It's a pretty controversial subject. But basically Pizzagate alleged that Hillary Clinton was part of a pedophile trafficking ring, and it was portrayed as a conspiracy theory by the mainstream media and just fake news, even though there's a lot of circumstantial evidence, to say the least, if you look into it. And the ironic thing was that it was debunked by the mainstream media as just fake news, and towards the end of the campaign, though, it was revealed that not only the Clintons but also Trump was connected to a pedophile ring through Jeffrey Epstein. And we can see that the Trumps and Clintons are actually really good buddies. Trump, again, is often portrayed as the anti-establishment guy, the nationalist versus the globalist establishment. And we can see how Trump is portrayed as the chaos to the establishment. But we know how the establishment uses order out of chaos. So they will use Trump's nationalist policies and agenda to further their own globalist agenda. Trump will be the excuse, since he's the nationalist, and nationalist is a threat to the system, and that in the future we will have to protect from nationalists, since they can be bad. And we see Trump portrayed as the judgment on the tarot cards on the Rothschild-controlled The Economist magazine. And it's called Planet Trump, which is the idea. Trump's chaos will lead to a planet of order. Trump, again, portrayed as anti-establishment, and he was going to drain the swamp. But we see Trump using the same hand symbolism as other Illuminati celebrities. And it says, we saw the connections between the Kabbalah and Freemasonry in the Illuminati and Satanism video. And the tarot cards are based on the Kabbalah tree of life. And it says in most tarot games, the fool has a unique role. In these games, the fool is sometimes called the excuse. And we see how Trump is portrayed as the fool, and how his policies will become the excuse for more globalism. And it says the Trump card in tarot games can refer to any sort of action, authority, or policy which automatically prevails over all others. And we see how his son-in-law, Jared Kushner's headquarters are at 666 Fifth Avenue. And Trump was bailed out during his bankruptcies by the Rothschilds. It says in 1987, Donald Trump purchased 93% of Resorts International, a CIA front funded by Allen Dulles and David Rockefeller. A year later, Trump bought the Atlantic City Taj Mahal from Resorts International. then began buying up other properties on Atlantic City Boardwalk. Soon Trump was tapped out and couldn't make his debt payments. Enter Wilbur Ross, billionaire bond trader portrayed by the financial media as an independent investor. In fact, in 1992, Ross was heading Rothschild Incorporation's bankruptcy advising team, which represented bondholders who were threatening to foreclose on Donald's house of cards. Later, Ross would partner with Jared Kushner in buying commercial properties in New York through Invesco. Jared married Trump's daughter, Ivanka, who prior to that had been dating Lord Jacob Rothschild's son, Nat. Ross got behind Trump's candidacy and would later be named his commerce secretary, according to News Punch. So we see many connections between Trump and the Rothschilds. And again, we know the Rothschilds' connections to the banking industry and the establishment. And we see this is Wilbur Ross. He's an American investor and businessman serving since 2017 as the 39th United States Secretary of Commerce. Before founding W.L. Ross & Company, Ross ran the bankruptcy restructuring practice at N.M. Rothschild & Sons in New York, beginning in the 70s. In April 2000, Ross left Rothschild to found W.L. Ross Company. Ross was a banker known for acquiring and restructuring failed companies. So we see how the Rothschilds bailed out Trump during his bankruptcy. And here we see Trump in his war room. And over his right shoulder is Wilbur Ross, the Rothschild representative. Over his left shoulder is his Secretary of State, who was from Exxon. And we know that Exxon is from Standard Oil, the Rockefeller Company. So over his right shoulder, a Rothschild man, and over his left shoulder, a Rockefeller man. And we know that those are the top two families in the banking establishment. And then right after taking office, Trump went on a world tour where he stopped at Saudi Arabia first, which is the home of Islam's most two holy sites, Mecca and Medina. And we see how he put his hands on an illuminated globe with other international leaders. A very odd symbolic gesture for a nationalist such as Trump. Then he went to Israel, and we know that the modern nation of Israel was helped started by the Rothschilds, according to the Balfour Declaration. Then he went to Rome and visited the Pope, where Ivanka and Melania were dressed like they were going to a funeral. And later Melania met with Prince Harry, who did a variation of the Freemasonic hidden hand symbol with devil's horns. And we see that his buddy who was part of Brexit, Boris Johnson, who looks a lot like Donald Trump, met with the Rothschilds and then went on tour with a Babylonian symbol. And we know the connections between Babylon and the Freemasons and how it represents satanic globalism. Trump was inaugurated on January 20th, 2017, and gave his first speech at CIA headquarters on January 23rd. And we know that the CIA headquarters, CIA is basically the head of the deep state. And Trump was supposed to be anti-deep state. And then Trump dropped the largest non-nuclear bomb, the Moab, on April 13th, 2017. And again, we know that the military and police are the enforcement arm of the banking Illuminati establishment. So Trump was right in bed with this sort of military action, which is reminiscent of all his predecessors. And that was actually one of the complaints against Obama, since he took military intervention similar to the way the Bush has done, but he was supposed to be the anti-Bushes, or the opposite of the Bushes, but he operated very much like the Bushes, which shows the illusion of choice in American politics. It doesn't matter which party gets into power, they will all pursue a agenda that is in line with the Illuminati banking establishment, and part of that is military intervention around the world. And here we see the Freemasonic associations to the military and police. And we saw this connection in the Illuminati and politics video, and we see how they are the enforcement arm of the establishment. And then after Trump's initial actions, he was really just pursuing a trade war, and that was being portrayed in the media as disruptive to the system and the world economy. And we saw it affecting the stock market adversely, with the stock market taking various plunges after actions by Trump in the trade war. And one symbolic drop was it dropped by 666 points. And this was kind of the dance that was going on between Trump and his trade war and the negative effects it was having on the economy. Just showing that nationalism was bad for the global economy. And then the coronavirus pandemic hit. And some interesting things to note about the coronavirus. Corona is the crown of the sun, which is Luciferian symbolism. And we know the connections between Luciferianism and the Illuminati establishment. We know that they use order out of chaos. And we can see how this coronavirus is used to further the New World Order. It's being set up as the financial crisis scapegoat, as well as the how it furthers the New World Order in the cashless arena and tracking of the public. And even we see 666 symbolism in the House of Representatives Trace Act, which was to track and trace the public, as well as in Microsoft's cryptocurrency patent, having a 666 in the number. And we know cryptocurrency's role in the cashless society. So that is basically where we're at in the current events arena with the coronavirus and its usefulness in furthering the New World Order. If you've liked this sort of content, please subscribe. Thanks for watching and have a nice day.